Thanks for stopping by the Junction, where we're trying to make connections between Ardmorites. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. This week, we're going to be talking about some banners you might be seeing around downtown Ardmore and wondering where those came from. We're going to hopefully answer some of those questions. Joining us this week in the Junction with the East Ardmore Revitalization Committee, two of their subcommittee members working on this project, Ms. Dorothy Varner and Mr. Cedric Bailey. So Dorothy, Cedric, thank you for joining us in the Junction.
Thank you so much, Michael.
And thank you for having us.
So these, just kind of briefly explain the kind of what came about to get this these banners celebrating Black history in Ardmore. How did this whole process come about?
Okay, first of all, John Cradle, Mayor John Cradle, Commissioner John Cradle approached me one day and he said he had been asked if there was any way that we could get together and recognize some of the Black leaders in Ardmore. And he knew that I had been on I do a Black history presentation at my church on third Sunday. So he knew that I, had some information. And then not only that, being lifelong Ardmorite, I had a lot of information, hopefully, that would benefit the group. So he formed the committee and asked myself if I would be a part of that. And there were 4 other members on that committee as well. And so that's how we got started.
Okay, so it was these people then that were kind of making the selections of what ultimately came out to be 9 different Ardmorites being kind of celebrated on these banners.
Correct. And so we met. He called the first meeting and we met, and he knew who we were. And so at that point, we started brainstorming on the people. Well, let me back up. Let me first go over who the members on the committee were, and so you'll know the involvement, who they were. The first one was our leader, and I said Mayor, Commissioner, Pastor John Cradle, who is the pastor at Mount Zion Baptist Church, and of course Cedric Bailey, who is a renowned radio personality who grew up here in Ardmore. He moved away and he came back, so we're glad of that. And then the other person was Renita Dotson, who is a lifelong Ardmore resident. She was a retired school nurse, and she was part of the committee. Another person who grew up here in Ardmore was Shantae Mayfield, and she retired from the Army as an E7 SFC senior food operations advisor. And then myself, Dorothy Varner, who is a retired educator here in Ardmore. So we made up the committee to form the group that chose the 9 banner people.
What were some of the things that y'all had to consider when, trying to figure out who was going to be featured, and how did you manage to get it kind of narrowed down to just 9?
Well, what we had to do is we had to come up with a list. Mm-hmm. And when we had to do with the list, the first thing we said, do we want to honor people who are still alive, or do we want to do it posthumous, where were those who have passed away? Mm-hmm. So we agreed that we would do the ones who passed away. We had probably about 40-something names.
It's unreal.
And then with those names, we had to decide who was this and that, and most of them were educators. So that was what the challenge was, and we were trying to make sure that on this go-round that we make sure that we do the best names we can. Mm-hmm. But there's way more than this 9. I think we probably came up with at least 22 solid ones that deserve to be up there.
Mm-hmm. And also, since we had so many people who were educators on the list, we decided to go to different groups like the civic group, the mayor, Mayzola McCurson, who was not only a business owner, but she was also the first Black mayor for Ardmore, and a female. And then we went to the pastoral group. We tried to choose people from each sector of life here in Ardmore, so we wouldn't just have all educators, but we had a big group of educators who have made a tremendous impact in Ardmore on the students, and especially students who attended Douglas High School.
I actually kind of want to talk a little bit about that. Looking at some of the names on the list of the 9 Ardmorites that are going to be celebrated on this Black History Banner Project, were a lot of educators. You had mentioned Mentha Mitchell-Varner, HFE Wilson, even T.M. Crisp, football player who went on to be a coach. Mm-hmm. that education was a common theme. Why was education so important for so many of these Ardmorites that we're celebrating?
Education was so important because it was our cornerstone. It was our foundation. And our educators not only were people who were important in our lives, but they lived in our communities. You know, we had teachers who lived maybe in the same block from us. And so not only did we look up to them as teachers and educators, they were community members that we highly respected. And that's really unusual today. But education is the cornerstone to a successful community. It's the cornerstone for economic growth. It's the cornerstone for making sure that citizens are successful. And so without our educators that we had in our Black community, a lot of us would not be where we are today. And a lot of these people that we're recognizing on the banner, they are where they are because of our educators. Lincoln Ragsdale, a Tuskegee Airman, amazing. You know, who would have ever thought he came from Ardmore, Oklahoma? We're just blown away. So education was our key. It was our ticket to success. It was our pathway to being the successful people that we are today. And I can, attribute that to all the great teachers that we had. And we didn't know that our school was poor growing up. You know, we had leftovers from everything Ardmore High School, but we didn't know that because our teachers gave us everything that we needed to become the citizens that we are today.
We're talking with Dorothy Varner and Cedric Bailey. They were on a subcommittee with the East Ardmore Revitalization Committee working on a Ardmore Black History banner project. You're going to be able to see 9 of those banners across downtown here in the coming days. Actually, how is the progress on that going? I know I've seen a handful going up here recently.
There are a few of those banners that are up currently, and as I was talking to Maria, I wanted her to tell me where they were. You know, I was like, okay, Maria, where are they located? And she said, well, she didn't really want to say where they are located because we want people to go around town and find them. So it's kind of like a scavenger hunt, you know. But it's really interesting to see when you look up, you're driving and you look up thinking, oh my goodness, there's a banner right there. And so I've only seen, I think, 3 or 4 of them right now.
I've seen at least 5 or 6 of them. But what I like the most, everybody, when they drive down A Street, that was known as Caddo. So if you're a traditional Ardmore, right, you know what I'm talking about. Caddo Street, and you look up and you see the gentleman that looks like a military, that is Mr. Leo Baker. He was the first African-American to be a police officer. Now, let me just share this with you. He's the second. Well, we had 2 of them. We also had another gentleman by the name of Mr. Charles Washington, who served our country. So we had 2 African-Americans and represented it. But here's the deal. During that time period, African-American police officers basically walked the beat in that side of town. They were not given transportation and have a police vehicle. So what Mr. Baker had to do, he had to walk the street with his billy club, and he probably had a firearm during that time period. And, you know, we had payphones back then or so you always kept a quarter or a dime in your pocket, and you made the phone call, and then that's when they send the wagon over there to come get you.
Yeah.
Wow. The history of this, so amazing to learn about some of this. Thank you guys so much for sharing some of this. I know this project is actually, y'all were doing this in conjunction with Create Ardmore to get some of this up. So just to kind of ask about some of the logistics, I mean, these banners are huge. How are some of these getting made and actually getting installed across town?
So I found out, because I didn't know the answer to that either, I found out that we have a company in Norman, and the gentleman's name is out of Norman, Oklahoma, and let me make sure I get his name. His name is Lind, Lind Mark, and they create the banners for us, and they are gigantic. And so we're thankful that they take the time to do that, and then they are hung by John Deere, who is a local here in Ardmore. And so he is the one who installs them and puts them up. So it's just a great opportunity for us to see this rich history that we have.
I'm going to make sure to include a list of the 9 names that are going to be featured on these banners here in the coming weeks. Over on our website, ardmoreleader.com, you can just look for the Junction and then follow links to this article. Finally, though, just what's going to be a good way as people are out looking for these banners, exploring Ardmore's history, once they do come across a face or a name that they are interested in, how do they go about actually just finding some more information out about this and just about the history of Black Ardmore?
First of all, the one banner that has everybody, all 9 people on it, is called our title banner. And so if you'll go to that particular banner, first of all, there is a QR code down in the corner. Take your phone, snap a picture of that QR code. It will give you a history of each one of the people that is pictured on each banner. And then also, I don't know if the location is going to be listed as well, but that QR code is one that gives you the information on who they are, some of the things that they have accomplished in Ardmore, and a little bit of their history. I don't think that it has a particular location. Like Maria said, she wants us to drive and search and look and hunt for those. So that's a good little family activity.
It's a good project.
Yes.
And so when you go around that little loop, you know how they got the circle right there, A, and of course on Main Street.
Yes.
The QRC code is on the bottom left. And when you click that, so when we've been sharing words with, I was speaking to Kwame Alfred McCurson, who is the son of Mazola. He says they would like to see people on a history project or a tour bus to come by and look at the rich history, because the banner says honoring Southern Oklahoma Trailblazers for Black history. And the gentleman that you see on the hat, you got to say, well, who is that? That's Buck Colbert Franklin. And when you say him, well, you got to think about the Tulsa Massacre, because he was the attorney that had an office right there on Main Street in Ardmore. And keep in mind, during that time period, there was no transportations. He had a horse and buggy to get around. Many of us, our folks, did not have that, What would you say, Dorothy?
We didn't have that. So they just brought a wealth of information, to us, and we can be forever grateful for their history and what they did for Ardmore and paving the way for us as Black citizens, or just citizens, period.
Well, Dorothy Varner, Cedric Bailey, doing some work with the East Ardmore Revitalization Committee, working on this larger Create Ardmore Black History Banner project. Any other last thoughts about the process or about just trying to be able to save some of this parts of Ardmore history?
We would like to be able to do this another time, and we don't know at this point if we will be able to get another chance, but we just have so much history on so many people who have given so much to Ardmore that the information needs to be out there. And so we hope this is not the last time we get to do this, and if it isn't, we have more people to come, people, not to mention people who are alive, but people who have gone on before us. Such a rich history to share.
And I just want to add this. There were so many other names when we think about the name of Mr. Clarence.
Yes.
He was a military person. He didn't get to live past 20 years old, but he went to school at Ardmore Douglas, left here, and was in the military, and he lost his life. And then there was another gentleman by the last name of Upchurch. Rodney Upchurch, another individual who received honor from our country. I don't know if it was a Purple Heart, but they received a medal for their dedication. And then a lot of people didn't know, but when we went to the American Legion Hall, that was called the Willie Stevenson. And the Stevenson family from right out here, they came from Milo, but he was the first Black soldier from Ardmore that was killed during World War II. We always saw his picture on the wall, but never knew who he was. There are so many history records. And then even the athletes, we never talked about them. Donald Lee Smith, where you can go over by Douglas Park by, of course, the church over there at Corinth. He was the first African-American to get drafted in the NFL. And he played for Coach Chris, who won a championship at Langston University. And he played in the Black Orange Bowl and lost to Florida A&M. So we got so many people who have came out here. We haven't even talked about the football players that came out of Ardmore who made it to the NFL. So we got so much talent.
One more thing. It's important to have the names out there, but it's more important to share what they did. And so, just seeing a name, and if you didn't know Mayzola McCurson and just seeing her name, you would know the rich history that she did here in Ardmore. If you just saw Mentha Varner's name or Willie Mitchell, you wouldn't know. So it's important for us to share what they did and what they brought to this community, not just giving their names, but why are they important to this community is vital.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us in the Junction. I look forward to continuing to share some of this history as we go forward. Thanks so much.
Thank you.